Sometimes life gives us lemons. Sometimes it gives us lemonade. Other times it gives us something entirely out of left field that makes us say, WTF. But no matter what obstacles come, there is most often a way out on the other side, and we are once again victorious. My name is Dr. Rowe, and you are listening to my podcast about resilience. Every guest shares a tragedy to triumph story to give listeners like you the inspiration to push through every single day. Listen now as my next guest shares how they were life-jacked.
What do you do when you suddenly find a lump in your breast? My name is Dr. Rowe, and this is LifeJacked, the Resilience Podcast. LifeJacked is when an unfortunate or unplanned event happens to jack with your life. My guest for this week, Jessica Baladad, is a 5-year cancer survivor who transformed her pain into power by becoming a passionate advocate for women globally. She founded Feel for Your Life, a free, yes, I said free, mobile application that provides resources on how to perform self-breast exams and when to get screened, while allowing users to track and monitor their changes and set reminders to also do self-exams. Jessica's own history with cancer drove her dedication to personally building her app. She first learned how to perform a self-breast examination after having a benign tumor removed in college. Jessica was later diagnosed with stage 2B invasive ductal carcinoma. She had found a lump during her routine self-exam, and her practitioner had documented it as normal. As a result of her diagnosis, Jessica underwent 16 rounds of chemotherapy, a double mastectomy, 24 rounds of radiation, a hysterectomy, and a 10-hour flap reconstruction. In addition to developing the Feel for Your Life app, Jessica has helped write legislation to promote risk-reducing measures against cancer and disease. She will share how resilience is sometimes about never giving up. Hi, Jessica. Welcome. Thank you so much for being a guest on my show. How are you?
Well, I am doing fantastic. Thank you so much for having me today. I am encouraged to be here to empower the people on the other side of the radio here or your podcast to grab life by the breast. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. So please share a little bit about yourself with the listeners.
Yeah, so you covered some of that. When I was 18 years old, I accidentally found a lump in my breast as I was starting my freshman year in college. And it scared me because breast cancer runs in my family. And when you find a lump in your breast, you think, oh my God, it has to be cancer. So I went and had it tested. I had a screening. It was an ultrasound. And whenever I got the results back, they said, hey, this is a tumor. This is a solid mass. What do you want to do? And I'm like, what? And I'm like, well, I want it taken out. I don't want it sitting there. So I had a lumpectomy, and it was that experience that put me in the habit of performing routine self-exams. Fast forward 15 years, I had been doing self-exams throughout my entire adulthood. I'm 33 years old. I'm in the shower. It was 2 days after I had my medical appointment with my practitioner. She did a clinical exam of my breast during that appointment, but said nothing to me about finding a lump or anything. So I'm in the shower, going through my routine, and I find a lump on the left side of my left breast, and I freaked out. And I thought, wait a minute, surely the doctor would have told me about this. Well, as it turned out, she actually did find it and never documented it because she thought I was too young for breast cancer, and she just chalked it up to a hormonal occurrence. I was actually in the best shape of my life at the time. running marathons, lifting weights, just taking care of myself. And I thought, well, breast cancer only runs on my dad's side of the family. I'm in good shape. I have nothing to worry about. I'm sure it's fine. And so I ignored it for about 4 months until I noticed I was tired all the time, and I was taking long naps in the middle of the day. And I was going through my phone after a nap. I look into Snapchat, and there's a girl that I had met, and she was shaving her head. And I asked my sister, who was a mutual friend as well, hey, why is so-and-so shaving her head? And my sister says, she's about to start chemotherapy for breast cancer. And I'm like, wait a minute, she's only a year older than I am. I need to get myself back to the doctor. And sure enough, went to the doctor, had it examined, had a mammogram and an ultrasound, and I was diagnosed with stage 2B invasive ductal carcinoma, or breast cancer. And I'm here today because a self-exam saved my life.
Oh, my goodness. So I want to go back. So for the listeners who may not know, what exactly is a lumpectomy?
A lumpectomy is basically a removal of a lump from the breast. That's it.
Wow. And so then fast forward, you're doing a self-exam. You're thinking, oh, my gosh, there's a lump in my breast. But previously you had gone to the doctor and you were 33, and the doctor made an assumption that, as the doctor, that you couldn't possibly be old enough, as if cancer has an age limitation or there's a prerequisite or of some sort to have cancer, which we obviously know that that is not the truth. But that's just amazing that a doctor would think that you would be too young for breast cancer, which, I hope listeners out there are paying attention, because she was 33, doctor thinking, no, that Jessica couldn't possibly have breast cancer. And in fact, the doctor was incorrect, and she actually did. And so really thinking about breast cancer, yes, it's normal. They say go and I got my first mammogram after being fussed at finally by my doctor. after 40, I'm almost 44 at this time, and I'm in my 40s, and she's like, I've been telling you to go get this mammogram since you were 38. And I'm like, I'll go when I want to. I'll get there. Luckily, my mammogram came back. All the results are normal, and everything was good to go. Yes. But I'm almost ashamed myself that it took so long for me to just go get this exam, but I was always scared, right? So talk about the self-exams and going to get a mammogram, please, and please talk about like how important that is, because there are people like me out here that are going, I'll get to it, and then year after year at your well woman, and then I don't ever get to it, and who knows what could be happening.
Yeah, so one thing to keep in mind is that 1 in 8 women will be diagnosed with breast cancer in her lifetime, and the other 7 will wonder if they're next. Statistically speaking, only roughly 10% of breast cancers are from a genetic mutation. We hear a lot about genetic mutations. People think, oh, well, it doesn't run in my family. I don't have to worry about it. But no, it's 1 in 8 who will be affected. And most of the women that I talk to, they don't have a family history of breast cancer. Now, I am the 4th generation on my dad's side of the family to have gotten it. There are 14 women altogether who have had breast cancer in my family. And we actually have no gene mutation that's been discovered. So it's really just up to science to keep up with what's going on. But it's so important to do your self-exams, because 40% of breast cancers are detected by women who feel a lump. Screenings are only recommended for women who are age 40 and above, but according to the Young Survivors Coalition, 12,000 women every year under the age of 40 will be diagnosed with breast cancer. So it's so important that we know how to advocate for ourselves, our breasts, our health, so that we can take the precautions against risk-reducing measures against disease to ensure our well-being.
So as you were going through the chemotherapy and then you find out you have to have a double mastectomy, 24 rounds of radiation, oh my goodness, and then a hysterectomy, like those were significant, I'm assuming, significant mental and emotional challenges. Like, how in the world did you overcome all of these things? I mean, because every part of you, right, that makes you a woman, right? These are things that are specific to us, your breast and your uterus, right? Those are things that are specific to us that make us women. And you're having these removed. So what helped you get through this mental and emotional challenge?
So I often say that cancer ran in my family until it ran into me. And the oncologist that I had treated my aunt and my grandmother, and now here he is in front of me at 33 years old, just shaking his head like, oh my gosh, I can't believe, here's a third generation I'm now taking care of in this same family lineage. And I had seen the treatments and the surgeries that women in my family had gone through. And I thought, I'm going hard. Like, it's either literally I'm going to do this or I'm going to die. So many people say, you're so brave, you're so courageous. But the reality is, I did it scared. So I had to decide, looking at statistics in my family, looking at my specific pathology, I had to say, okay, what can I do for myself to ensure this doesn't come back and to make sure that I could beat it? So I did it scared, and I took all the necessary precautions that I needed to keep cancer out of my body.
Wow. So third generation, your grandmother, aunt, you, all dealing with breast cancer. So because you have this connection with your aunts and your grandmother and all of that, did you have a greater support system, do you feel? Or did you have a support system at all to kind of help you or give you inspiration, cheer you on?
So unfortunately, I had lost, 2 aunts and my grandmother and other members of my family when I was diagnosed. And actually, I had to miss one of my aunt's funerals. She was dying of stage 4 metastatic breast cancer when I received the news. And I had to start chemotherapy and miss her funeral. But I did have a great support system with my husband and my dad and my sister. At first, I kept everything to myself. I was really scared that my friends would abandon me. I had a really close, tight-knit group of people that I told and would relay news to. But over time, I realized I had to tell my story because a self-exam saved my life. And I wanted to get the word out about that. I learned when I did come out with my breast cancer story, there were 3 reasons why women weren't doing self-exams. 1, no one had ever taught them. 2, they were ashamed of their bodies or ashamed of touching themselves. And 3, they were uninsured or underinsured, and they didn't have the financial resources to get help. So I knew that cancer would somehow become my calling, and I eventually found support in the women who found my passion within my mission, and they supported me for what I was doing.
So I have to ask, because I've heard all different types of things about doing breast exams. They say the best place to do it is in the shower. The best time to do it is around your cycle. So what advice do you give us women for doing our self-exam?
Well, I would say the first thing to do is make an appointment with your medical provider and let them know what your goals are for your breast health. Go over your breast with your doctor, have them do a clinical exam of your breast, and ask questions while they're doing it. Do you feel anything that's abnormal? Do you see anything that's abnormal? Is there anything that I should be looking out for? What changes could be normal for me if I experience them in my breast? When should I call you and tell you if I find something that's abnormal? It's probably going to be right away. But I would say that's where you start. And then ask your doctor, when should I start doing a self-exam and how often? If you have a menstrual cycle, like when I still had my period before my hysterectomy, I would do mine on the last day of my period. And now that I don't have one anymore, I just pick the same time every month.
Wow, great information. Thank you so much. So now you've gone through all of this, the chemotherapy, the double mastectomy, the radiation, the hysterectomy, the 10-hour flat reconstruction, and you decide to develop an app. So what was the turning point that inspired you to develop the Feel for Your Life app?
Okay. It was the pandemic, and I was working with the NFL for their Crucial Catch campaign that they run in October. They wanted me to share my story, and I learned through that campaign that women were missing their screenings and being diagnosed at later stages because everyone was afraid to go to the doctor or go to the hospital for various reasons during COVID. So they were missing their screenings, getting diagnosed at later stages, and I thought, wait, a self-exam is what saved my life. I need to do something about this. Feel for Your Life was a social media project in which I just talked about my story and doing self-exams on Instagram and Facebook. And then I saw this need to do something even bigger. Everyone was on their phones during COVID. You know, we were on TikTok and just connecting, you know, over Zoom and Slack and just different means of digital communication. I'm like, I need to bring this to where it's more accessible and people will be more familiar with it. So while my friends were baking bread and collecting plants, I decided I was going to build an app. And I thought it was something that I could make big in my community in the Nashville area. And it certainly did become big. It actually blew up, and now it's changing lives all over the world.
Well, Jessica, you are an absolute genius. And so I have to ask, how did you know which specific features to have in the app?
Yeah, so I kind of looked around at what was already available on the internet, and there were a few sources that said, this is how you do a self-exam, and don't forget to do your self-exam. I'm like, well, that's great. Don't we need to keep up with the changes in our breasts as well? So I created, the functionality, let's learn how to do a self-exam. Let's track and monitor your progress. Let's set monthly reminders. Let's put mental health resources in there. Let's put other advocacy resources in there. How to understand things like your breast density, taking preventative or risk-reducing measures against cancer, what surgery options that you may have, what non-surgery options that you may have for taking care of yourself. I wanted to be more thorough and create something a little more comprehensive. And then as AI evolved, it's been a couple weeks now, I launched a new feature in the app called Breast Friend AI, in which you can put in your pathology report from a screening mammogram or a lab report. You can put that into Breast Friend AI, and it's going to break it down and translate it into terms that you understand. It's going to break down that medical jargon for you, and then based on your specific pathology, it's going to give you customized questions to ask your medical provider so that you can better understand your body and advocate for the screenings and resources that you need to take care of yourself.
That is simply amazing, and I can't wait till we finish this interview because I am definitely downloading the app, and I actually have a mammogram that I can upload to it.
Tell me and let me know what you think and everything. I want to hear all about it.
Everyone listening to this podcast will also download it after they finish listening to this episode because women, our health is important. We can't put off the mammogram. We have to think about, going to get checked out because like you said, 1 in 8 women can be diagnosed with breast cancer, and that's a huge number. That's almost 10%, so that's pretty major. So I just want to say thank you for building a community for women through this app where women can feel safe to advocate for their health, because believe it or not, I know there's a lot of talk about men not going to the doctor and men, not wanting to go to the hospital and take care of their health. But there are a lot of women out here who are facing the same type of thing. They're facing a crisis. Like you said, they don't have insurance, or they live in poorer communities, rural communities. They just don't have access to health care. I really thank you. So could you share some feedback or some story from a user that has moved you in some type of way?
Yeah, there are a few stories that stick out to me. There's one person who had a family history of breast cancer, and she downloaded the app, started doing self-exams, went to the doctor, and really started talking about her risk and wanted to have a risk assessment done. So by using the resources in the app and going through her self-exam history with her medical provider, as well as discussing her genetic disposition to cancer, she decided to have prophylactic or preventative surgery. She chose to have a double mastectomy with reconstruction so that she could reduce her risk of breast cancer as close to zero as she could get it. When she did the genetic testing and everything, they found that she had about a 40% chance of being diagnosed with breast cancer in her lifetime. And she's like, oh no, well, that's just way too high, and it is very high. So she decided to have that done. And I have many women who have told me, hey, Jessica, I found a lump, and thanks to you, I'm going to the doctor now. It turned out to be nothing, but I'm doing my self-exams, and I'm on top of my screenings now. I get tagged in posts all the time from women who are like, hey, I went to get my mammogram thanks to Jessica Baladad. Thank you so much for your advocacy and your reminders. And then I run into people throughout my community or wherever, and they'll come up to me and like, Jessica, I thought of you while I was doing my self-exam. I'm like, I'm flattered, but I know it's just, it's well-intentioned. And then there's another one. There's a woman in California who had breast cancer, and even after her diagnosis, no one had shown her how to perform a self-exam until she downloaded my app. And she did a self-exam after having breast cancer. She was in remission at that time, but she did find a lump in her chest, and it turned out to be a reoccurrence of breast cancer. And that was 2 years ago. It turned out to be very aggressive, and she was able to intervene with that a lot sooner than if she had accidentally stumbled upon that. But she is in hospice care and palliative care right now, rather, but I'm just really glad that we were able to connect and she found my app and got help as soon as she possibly could for that. So those are just some of the things that stick out to me the most.
Well, I just can't keep saying it enough, Jessica. You are our hero for sure.
Oh.
Now, in addition to having this wonderful app, and like I said, in building this community of women, but your work has also extended into legislative advocacy. Can you discuss the process of getting involved with legislation and what this act means for the act that you kind of lobbied for? What could that mean for future generations?
Yeah, so it was a complete accident, really. I was in New York. I'd already been vaccinated against COVID and everything, and so me and my husband took a trip to New York for his birthday, and we were in the hotel late in the evening, and we saw a news report about this group who was trying to create and pass a bill on requiring students to learn about doing self-breast exams and making it required in schools. And I thought, well, that's really cool. Someone should do that in Tennessee because that's where I'm from. And then I'm like, wait a minute, why not me? So I just ended up writing a few emails to my state representatives or my local representatives in my area, and someone contacted me because I started sharing statistics with them and sharing my story. And we created a bill in the state of Tennessee called the Feel for Your Life Act, which would require high school students to learn about doing self-breast exams, testicular exams, and skin exams. And there's still a lot of work that needs to be done there, but it's been really well received in the communities that I've spoken with. And then from there, I started seeing issues with insurance denials and with patients in the patient community, and I'm just like, something needs to be done about this. So I just started Googling things about how I could get involved, and I found an incredible group called Patients Rising Now, and they have a strong advocacy platform to hold insurance companies accountable to the coverage that they should be required to provide under the Affordable Care Act. And there are things I can get into all kinds of acronyms if you want me to, but right now there is a bill that has passed the House at the federal level to ban something called quality scores. And a quality score is a quality of life score. Basically, your insurance company assigns you a score to decide if you're worthy enough of a treatment or a surgery. And these things need to be eliminated. So without going on this tangent about all of that, I saw a problem and I wanted to find solutions for it and let my voice be heard on a higher level so something could be done about it.
Wow, that's amazing that insurance companies have this quality score and they're using that to determine whether or not you give me care. That's just amazing. I mean, you think about insurance companies and that it's a money grab, but it absolutely, definitely seems like a money grab.
Yeah.
For sure.
More like you're contributing to a lottery rather than paying for coverage to be taken care of.
Absolutely. Wow. So you've spoken in front of Congress, like you said, and fighting against insurance companies. I mean, I'm just amazed at your courage to do something like this. And you mentioned, the main issues that you are fighting when it comes to insurance and patients. But where do you get your courage to do all of this?
I know that there are patients and people counting on advocates like me to give them a voice when they can't speak up for themselves. So it's not so much courage within myself, it's knowing that this is a necessity for the patient communities who can't be heard or can't use their voice. So they are the ones that keep me motivated to keep going and fighting for them.
Wow. Now, you also have a plan to expand your relationships with pharmaceutical companies. So what are your goals to advocate for better patient access to healthcare through pharmaceutical companies?
Yeah, so really what I'm wanting to do is, again, we have to hold insurance companies accountable to the coverage that they have to pay, eliminating things like the quality of life score, doing things, what we found are that insurance companies are going directly to the CMS, which is what controls the billing codes for procedures, surgeries, medications. Insurance companies are going to the CMS, and they are requesting that they don't have to pay as much towards those medical codes. So let's say last year there was an issue with the reconstruction surgery that I had, deep flap reconstruction, and insurance companies, it was actually Blue Cross Blue Shield, went to the CMS and they said, hey, we don't want to pay out as much for this surgery anymore. Change the code. And the CMS, something happened. I don't know what happened, but the CMS said, okay, we'll change it. And then advocates started hearing about it. And it was like, oh, no. You need to give that code back because it's not even covering what needs to be done. And so it's things like that I want to hold insurance companies accountable more so than just directly working with the pharmaceutical companies are benefiting, but it's holding the insurance companies accountable to the coverage that we already pay for.
Wow, that's just amazing. Thank you for educating us and all the listeners out there. Now, you mentioned AI, which is, of course, the newest advancement in technology that's here to, serve us and here to help us. Anything else on the horizon for your app besides the AI capabilities, the artificial intelligence capabilities?
I am right now watching and monitoring how the AI responds to patients in the way that I created it and built it, and I look forward to using the data and making it better. Now, when I did design it, I made it very empathetic and relational because I'm a patient who's been through the patient experience with cancer, and I wanted to give something back to the patient community who would be using it because I understand what they're going through. So I'm going to be kind of monitoring how I can improve that. Another part of the advocacy that I work on is helping patients negotiate their medical bills and overcome insurance denials. So stay tuned and see if I can't work on AI to help patients in that capacity in the future.
Simply amazing, Jessica. Thank you so much. I just can't thank you enough.
Yeah, for sure.
I have to ask you, in your opinion, what are the best ways to build resilience?
Best ways to build resilience is, I think about why we may struggle with being resilient, and it comes from a place of fear. And when we think about fear, we see this emotion that's emotionally charged with fight, flight, or freeze. But I like to take fear and turn it into a tool and use it to plan, to prepare, and to seek help. And when we can take something like fear and turn it from this emotionally charged action and turn it into a tool that can help us, I think that's where our resilience can come from.
Jessica, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you. Can you do me a favor and let everyone know how they can download your app, Feel for Your Life, or book you for speaking engagements?
Sure. If you'd like to book me to speak, you can just go to my website at feelforyourlife.com. You can also go there to download the app. It's absolutely free. Or you could go to the Google Play Store or the App Store and download, just search for Feel for Your Life.
Awesome. Any last words of encouragement for the listeners?
Yeah, do your self-exams. I'm going to tell you 5 ways you can advocate for your breast health. Number 1, find a great doctor who will advocate with you. Number 2, do those self-exams. Number 3, get into a screening routine or talk about when you should get into a screening routine. Number 4, know your breast density. And number 5, understand your genetic disposition to cancer. Those things are going to help you advocate for your breast life.
Amazing. Well, listeners, you heard it from Jessica Baladad, who's out here saving breasts 1 or 2 at a time to help us women out. I hope that as soon as you finish listening to this episode, that you take out your phone or you go to the app on your app store and you download the app Feel for Your Life, just as I did. And I hope that it helps you and could actually even save your life. Jessica, thank you so much. Please take care.
Thank you.
You've reached the end of another episode of LifeJacked, the Resilience Podcast. Connect with me at www.lifejackedpodcast.com. Don't forget to sign up to the blog so you won't miss any events or episodes. And every now and then, I'll give away free materials from my guests or from me. Remember to live, laugh, love, learn, and then repeat. See you in the next episode.